Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
And away we do go. Purple Access. It is Judd, is Chip Scoggins from the Star Tribune. Of course, great sports columnist, great feature writer, and more importantly, my good friend, and Ross Brendel, who is producing. And we are back from the bye week, Chip Scoggins. I want to ask you, I'll start with the premise that I've been throwing out all week, which is, do you ever remember a time covering the beat for the Vikings, with me or without, where you were this excited for a Vikings-Lions game?
No. I don't think in my time here that there's been a matchup like this with the Lions where you're feeling like this might be two of the three best NFC teams? I still think San Francisco is really good when they're healthy. But this feels like a heavyweight matchup all of a sudden, right? You got a really good offense, one of the best offenses in pro football. I think the highest scoring offense, right? Lions going against Brian Flores' defense. And so, this should be a great one.
So it's game 6 for the Vikings. So it's not going to define the season, but much like the San Francisco game, Chip, what excites me is I think it's going to be a great barometer game. Like the Lions, and look, both teams are going to be without key guys. Aiden Hutchinson going out, and the fact that the Lions somehow thought that the other rush end should be Marcus Davenport, who's out, of course, for the season, is absolutely crazy. But I think when you look at this, even if Vikings don't have Aaron Jones, it looks like they're not going to have Blake Cashman. It's going to be a barometer game because, like with San Fran, Detroit. I mean, I asked O'Connell this yesterday, and aside from his sit down with Mark Craig, in which he talked about the philosophical shift, it was a marvelous piece. I asked O'Connell about yesterday, hey, did the Lions' success and how they played basically influence how you and Kwesi built this team this year? Because, you're more physical, you're tougher, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. He danced around it. But I really do think that, the Lions beat them twice. The Lions play a game where they want to take the game to you. If you look at all of the things, I think this is going to give you a really good barometer, again, of where the Vikings really are.
Yeah, and I think we said that with San Francisco in week 2. And we said that, they've had a number of these games where you felt like, okay, this is a kind of to see where your bar is at. And I think for the Vikings, particularly their offense, coming back from London where they just did not play well and they didn't do much of anything after that fast start. This is a chance to kind of reestablish some things, and it's going to be hard without Aaron Jones if he doesn't play. Which, you're talking about a hamstring now. I thought it was hip. Now they're saying hamstring. So
I guess they're connected.
Oh yeah.
So I guess there is a connection. It wasn't like a complete BS thing. There's some type of connection. And by the way, he missed time with a left hamstring problem last year. This is the right hamstring. I don't know that makes me feel a lot better.
No, and he had a hamstrings issue last year, and this is not unexpected, right? I mean, did any of us think he was going to play 17 games?
No.
And so they have to figure out how they're going to operate when he's not in there, because the first glance of it against the Jets was not good. It just felt like they completely came undone without his presence in there. And so they have to show that they have a plan B. And you're going against, not having Hutchinson in there obviously helps your protection. And so I want to see how the offense responds. And then I feel, also defensively, this is a team that has a lot of speed. They can run the ball. They obviously can pass the ball. I think they're top 5 in both rushing and passing. And so it's not like you can load up against one or the other. And Detroit's done a really nice job of putting a lot of speed on their offensive side with Gibbs and their wide receivers, and so yeah, this will be a fun matchup. I like Dan Campbell. I know people, have he inspires a lot of different opinions. I think the guy's a good coach. Now, does he get a little too aggressive with his play call? Sure. I mean, obviously, some of them you might think, it'd be a little more conservative there. But I think the guy's a good coach. What they've built there is really good, and so this is one of those barometer games to kind of see where you're at. I think particularly offensively.
Yeah, and don't sleep on the fact too that Ben Johnson, who probably could have gotten a head coaching job, elected to come back there, and he is of course the Detroit OC. Total offense, they're averaging 416 yards a game, which is third. Passing, they're fourth in the league. Rushing, they're fourth, and points per game, 30.2, they're first. So, yeah, you're right, and that Dallas drubbing, and Dallas, I don't think they're that good, but I mean, you go into Dallas and score 49 points, and Campbell is patrolling them.
That's right.
Like that's a Lions team that I still in my head can't grasp because it's just so unusual to see Detroit being that dominant.
Well, you talk about a team that takes the reflection of their coach, and I think this team does, the Lions. I mean, you talk about the confidence and bravado and that Campbell shows, and you see it in this team. And so I really, this is another one of those, we've had probably 3 or 4 of these where offensive play caller that's highly regarded going against Brian Flores in kind of the chess match. And so far Flores has won, I think, all of them, right? So this will be another good one to watch. And the Cashman injury hurts because I think he's been just outstanding in terms of not only the tackles and the production, but just kind of the guy. I mean, he's the green dot, so he gets everybody set up and everything. Now, I think their depth is a whole lot better this year than it was last year. I think that's been proven out so far early on. But it's interesting. You come back from the bye, and now your injury report is still really long. You'd hoping they'd be a little more.
Harrison
healthy,
Phillips didn't practice yesterday.
I know, but you know what, Judd? This is the time. This is the time of the year where your depth starts getting exposed, and you start to see the roster construction. So, that it's less than ideal to not have Cashman this week going against that offense.
Yeah, you're right, and this is the thing. Like, this is the thing about this league that sort of makes it special. Every sport has guys hurt, but there's no war of attrition like this league, right? And so to your point, the first 5 weeks can go swimmingly and it's great, but you're always like, well, that's not going to be the reality. And now the question becomes, who do you lose? Like, if you lose your quarterback, Cousins, it's catastrophic, right?
Yeah.
But Cashman, you're right. And it's interesting. Jones and Cashman were available, both of them, on the market partially because of this. Like, Cashman, I think, was a developing player, but Aaron Jones and Blake Cashman have problems staying healthy. And so, you got them, and they've been great so far. But to backtrack to your point about Jones, it also holds true for Cashman is, did you really expect him to play 17? And the answer was no. And now it's like, can Grugier Hill step in again? He did a great job for pace.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure about you. I think the loss of this year's Cashman is a bigger deal than the loss of this year's Pace. Pace is good, but I think Cashman has just been all over the place like you were talking about.
Yeah, and both of them are good players, but I just think Cashman has been he's been a real find for them. and just, you notice his one, I remember at Green Bay after the first quarter, I looked up because it felt like he had like 15 tackles in the first quarter. The guy just is always around the ball, right? And I do think in this defense, having someone that can get guys lined up, make the checks, make sure everything's kind of organized. And that's not just one guy. I mean, I think the safeties have a big part in that too. But he's been a lot more impactful for this defense than I thought. And so hopefully the turf toe is not something my guess is that's something that lingers that you just have to deal with.
Turf toe's not good.
I don't think you can. It just doesn't go away. So that's something he's going to have to deal with probably the rest of the season. But if they can get it to where he can manage it and play with it. Yeah. So, but this is, this is kind of where teams have to start piecing things together with backups and game plans to figure out, how do we cover for this and that. And so this is where it really becomes, like you said, the war of attrition. And it's one thing to lose your quarterback. Okay, that happens.
Right.
Everything changes. But it's the weekly, okay, this guy's out. We don't have Aaron Jones. That's why I was saying with the offense, is like if Aaron Jones can't go, the offense cannot perform like it did against the Jets. I mean, you can't just all unravel because Aaron Jones is not there. And so it's interesting to go out and get Cam Akers again. And, I assume he plays this week, and I don't know how big a role he has, but
and is Ty Chandler? I mean, Ty Chandler seems to be like he's got that great burst, and I love it, but there's just a lot of things where it just feels like it's still lacking.
Well,
so like, can Akers jump Chandler eventually? And but I mean, both of them, just to be upfront, both of them aren't Jones.
No, but you're going to need both. It's not like you can just go and say, okay, Ty Chandler's our guy, and we're going to give him however many carries. You needed another guy, and so. But I think they're still, obviously, they're both in a long season. You got to have depth at that position for sure, especially with a guy, Aaron Jones's injury history.
Yeah. So I'll put some context to this stat I'm about to give you, because it might be a little misleading to a degree, and I don't watch a ton of Detroit games. But so the Vikings are 30th in the league in passing defense. As a statistic, 263 yards per game, largely because they've led a lot, and so teams will start to pass. So they give up passing yards, but it's not, but in scoring defense, they are third. So they've been great there. The context of the stat then is to say this: the Detroit Lions are 27th in passing defense, 13th overall. Passing defense has given up 246.2 yards per game. They're 8th in scoring, but I bring this up because, Justin Jefferson has torched the Lions.
Yeah.
Torched them. And I do wonder, and this gets back to your thing on Darnold, I do wonder how much they can exploit that. Davis has a quad injury for Detroit, the cornerback. He didn't practice yesterday. So, in the absence of Jones, and I don't think he plays, in the absence of Jones, how much can Darnold exploit that for Jefferson, Addison, Naylor, coming off what was a shaky game against a good Jets defense?
Yeah, it's funny. Before we started recording here, I was looking at that pass defense, and I was thinking about, I was like, wow, they're both not very good at pass defense. But I think a lot of it is that they've gotten up to leads, and so teams just abandon the run and they throw it. I mean, you think about the Green Bay game; they gave up a lot of yards there when that game was not out of control, because it came down to an onside kick, but teams have had to throw a lot, so it's a little misleading. But I think they're going to have to, because I don't know that they're going to have the balance that we saw in the first 4 games, with running the ball without Jones. I just don't know that they can consistently rely on that like they did when Jones was in there, and so. Yes, you're probably going to have to lean more toward that, but I want to see if there's more. Now, I think the Jets corners are really good, and so I think they deserve some credit for why the offense looked the way it did. But it just felt like that was so much feast or famine and keep throwing the ball deep to Jefferson and hope he made a play. Now, they got, a couple 3 pass interference calls out of it, and that's great. But it just felt like there was not a lot of variety to it. It's just like, we're going to keep taking deep shots to Justin and hope he catches one. So I'm curious to see what the game plan looks like. I think the Hutchinson loss really,
it's massive,
because he can just wreck a game. I mean, he can 2 sacks that affects 2 drives, right? So that's 2 drives you're probably punting on if he gets a sack, right? And so not having him and not having the threat of him, I think will obviously help the passing game. But I just think they need to spread the ball more. I need to get Addison involved, and not be so. It just felt like they were taking deep shot after deep shot after deep shot to JJ, and that's great. I mean, he's going to make plays, but I want to see what the game plan looks like this week coming off of that Jets kind of odd.
And just play action work. You know, with
Yeah.
Jones,
Well,
you got to
not-
respect play action, and
Yeah.
Darnold's good for, you know, I mean, an effective play action game almost inevitably makes a quarterback better. So
Sure.
does that work if it's, you know, Akers, for instance? I don't know. It might. I'm just saying that, you know, Jones
Yeah.
provides, because he's such a multifaceted threat, right? He can block, he can catch. I mean, he's
Yes.
a really good catcher. He can run. Like, this is the first time in O'Connell's 3 years that you have a back, because Dalvin still got some nice runs in 22, but there was a lot of lost yards, and, you know, he's basically was cooked, no pun intended by then. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And this is this, you know, losing Jones mid game, that's difficult, because I'd asked O'Connell afterwards. We had like a private session with the local beat guys after the thing, and he said, "Yeah, we had so much package in for Jones," and I agree, you know, I think that's probably true. And then all of a sudden he's out. Now all of a sudden, you're adjusting on the fly. Now that you have a week or 2 weeks really to kind of formulate, okay, he's probably not going to play, or if he doesn't play, this is what we're going to do. It gives you a little more time to plan for it and kind of figure out a way to scheme around it.
right. Yes, Roscoe, what's up?
Well, I guess I got a question more specifically on the Lions offense and slowing them down, because when you look at how they started the year, you thought, okay, maybe the Lions are slowing down a little bit. Maybe they've come back to the pack. They scored 26 points in their week 1 win, only 16 in their only loss to the Buccaneers, 20 when they beat the Cardinals. The last few weeks, however, against the Seahawks, 42 points. Last week on the road against Dallas, the 47 points that you guys alluded to. I just think for the Vikings, it's more about slowing down the Lions offense than what anything the Vikings can do offensively. And then I would also counter that with a second point. I'm not sure there's a team in the league that can probably more overcome an injury to a star player than the Detroit Lions, because Aiden Hutchinson doesn't play offense for them. If they're going to score 40 points a game, they got some leeway on defense. So I think the most important thing for the Vikings is getting pressure on Jared Goff. And then when the Lions counter, if they're going to get the ball out quickly, can the Vikings hold up? I guess that's my biggest question for this game.
Yeah, to me, that matchup comes down to, do they stop the run? Because if Montgomery and Gibbs get going, then you're in trouble, right? I mean, if they're a big part of their attack and they're getting 4 and 5 yards a carry, now all of a sudden you have to commit more guys there, and that, you know, leaves St. Brown and you know, Porta and all the guys that they have, Williams. That just gives them more opportunities. So to me, it has to start with stopping those 2 running backs, and if they can do that, then you can, you know, let Flores do his thing to create confusion with the offense and where he's bringing pressures from. But I think it really, really has to start with, which they've been good at. I mean, Judd, would you say stopping the run? I mean, they're second. And part of that is they've gotten up to big leads so much that teams have to abandon the run. But their line has been really good in terms of stopping the run.
And this is where I think that they're really going to miss Cashman. I think Cashman's been fantastic because he's a whirling dervish. I mean, he's all over the place. And if you think about it, like they were lacking this, they were lacking this linebacker, or at least a set of them. Grugier Hill had the 2 picks in the 2 games the Pace missed. He played really well for a backup, but I think that you missed Cashman. I'm assuming Harrison Phillips plays. If he's dinged up though, that's a problem too. So yeah, I think that this is going to be, I think that's the challenge. I think the challenge is, what do you do? Like, does Metellus help stop the run now? Like, who helps out with that Cashman role? And yeah, because if the Lions can establish the ground game, eat clock here, quiet the crowd down, like, because I think if the Vikings play well, I think the crowd's going to be a factor. Yeah. Like, this place gets, you know, when the Vikings are good, and it had been a little bit of time. 22 was fun, but I don't know that team was like great. But this crowd can play a role. In fact, the Vikings at practice yesterday were playing crowd noise at their own practice for their own home game. So, but I mean, that shows you just how deafening that place can get. So if the Lions get the run game going, I think that's a problem because that's ball possession, and now the crowd is not as loud ordinarily.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think the Cashman loss in the run game becomes a potential problem.
Yeah, because he's been so good against the run. I mean, that's what was the game last year, Judd, where the team just basically abandoned it and just kept running it over and over and over, and that's, to me, that's like been a big difference in what this defense can do this year versus last. I think they've just been stout against the run. I think Cashman's been a huge part of that. And so, and then it gets their offensive line, which is still good. That gets them into a rhythm, and I just think as much as you can get it to where you can make Goff uncomfortable. And if they can establish the run, I think he's going to be comfortable. If you can limit that and bring your pressures and get after him with your being at home with that extra beat that you get off the line because it's so loud. And just the pressures. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Stroud's a good quarterback, and he was
flustered. He was flustered for sure. So I think as much as you can do that, that's going to play to their advantage. And you're right, Roscoe. I mean, it's like, I mean, they're averaging 30, so that offense can kind of mitigate defensive losses. But if you're going against a good defensive team, it's not like you can just bank on, okay, we're going to score 35. Like, that's that plays into it too. So I mean, to me, this game comes down to can the Vikings stop the run and get after Goff, and then on the other side, can they figure out a way to spread the ball around? If the running game is not what it was the first 4 games without Jones, can they get Addison involved? Can they get Naylor involved? Can they, get Ty Chandler and screen passes?
See, that's that I don't know they can. See, that's the problem. It feels like their screen game is based on one guy. And I mean, he's great at it, but we've seen it when it doesn't work, Chip. It doesn't work. It's fruitless.
It's 2nd and 12 when it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. So like I don't know. That's my problem is, does play action work? Is your screen game basically gone? I do not expect Hawkinson to play. I think he might play Thursday against the Rams the following Thursday, but I don't expect him to play. So there's a lot of questions here. It's a suboptimal time to be without certainly Jones, but again, no one's going to feel sorry for you because Aiden Hutchinson and look, Aiden Hutchinson, some tackle's life just got really simple. Like that dude has an NFL leading 7.5 sacks. The Lions as a team have 15. So you have now taken away, and it's not that they're not still good, but you have now taken away the one guy who was single-handedly crushing teams. You take Aaron Donald from the Rams a couple of years ago. You think of the guy, the best player possible. It's that type of loss. So like I don't know if he would have lined up against both Darisaw and O'Neal at times, but whoever it is, not that they couldn't do a decent job, but they just caught a massive break.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to ask you, since the league has finally gotten the trade deadline correct, okay? So I think it's been moved back a week again. We actually started to see, in fact, a couple of years ago, the TJ Hawkinson trade at the deadline by the Vikings. So we're now seeing moves made, which is great. Like it feels more like baseball or basketball or hockey. We saw Devontae Adams traded a couple days ago to the Jets. We saw Mark Cooper traded by the Browns. Here's what I want to ask you. What does your gut tell you about what the Vikings might do at the deadline, and how active do you think that they might be to get depth at a key spot? For instance, cornerback, where they really lack depth. If someone goes down, they're in trouble. Or to improve defensive tackle. What do you think?
Well, that's the thing is like, Judd, they don't have a lot of picks to play with.
You'd have to do what they did with the Akers trade, which is dip into 2026. No question. They don't have a lot of picks to play with.
It's and I don't know how attractive that is to teams when you're getting that far down the road.
Sure.
Obviously, they'll want this year. And so I don't know the salary cap thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if they can. I don't know if it'll be a big splash, but if they look at it and say, we could really use some more depth here, maybe along the line, maybe another corner of a team that's fallen out. I think this regime has shown a willingness to be aggressive if they feel like they have a need or a hole that needs to be fixed. And so I think they're always on the lookout of that. I just wonder how much ammunition they have in terms of draft capital that they could do that with.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, a 5-0 start changes your perspective on things, you know.
And you might be 6-0, you know.
Yeah, and even if you lose a couple, I mean, you may look at this as hey, why not? You know, why not try to make the best run that you can this year? And so I think Kwesi will I think he's always on the look to try to improve the team and be aggressive. But if you have to dip into 2 years out now, what's that return going to bring you?
The division is just so tough. And I mean,
know.
it's great. It's fun. And you've got this, like, I know it wasn't expected, but it looks legitimate. So that's what's funny.
Yeah.
It doesn't, 2022, everything, the metrics, the point differential, everything pointed to a fluke. This doesn't point to a fluke. So, like,
No.
do you try and jump at this opportunity now? Like, to your point, do you slow play that, which you might regret? Who knows? I mean, it's just an interesting place to be. It's a positive place to be, but it's not a clear cut, yes or no.
Yeah, no, this is when the defense is not a fluke. I mean, the playmakers you have on offense is not a fluke.
Nope.
When you're winning the way they're winning, that's not fluky. This is not a close game and you get a pass interference penalty and you kick it. I mean, they're leading. How much have they led every game by? I mean, their point differential, I think, is number one.
Yep, it's number one.
And
I think the Lions are number two.
I was thinking about this. I have a terrible memory about. I don't have the recall that you do. I'm always jealous that you can recall games. But when's the last time the division has been this formidable?
I would say never, because
top to bottom.
Yeah, because Detroit popped up in the early 2010s. Detroit popped up a little bit, but they were never like this. Yeah. I don't think since the division started, this division with Tampa Bay out of the Central and it became the North and say 2001 or 2002, it's never been this good.
Yeah.
Because, like the Bears ordinarily still would be crappy and it'd be like, okay, you got three teams. But, the Bears are, until they fall apart, and that defense is really good. Detroit's a wagon, as the kids like to say. The Vikings are, again.
Good, yeah.
So, and Green Bay is, always, you always want to write them off, and Jordan Love looks good, and now they kick the crap out of the Cardinals. What's your opinion of Darnold right now, though? So you covered the game in London. You saw that game. That was not pretty. Up until then, he had played great. But like, if we were to identify what feels sustainable, right, with health, defense feels sustainable. Justin Jefferson, Addison, if Jones, those guys are sustainable products. What do you think on Darnold?
Well, I think there's no doubt about me. He didn't play well, but nobody did. I don't think there are a lot of things I think that factored into why he played poorly, including he missed throws that he has been making. I just think having a credible running game is important for him because it just makes life easier for him and the offense and the play caller and all that when you can have a guy like Jones and you're getting 4 or 5 yards of crack and you're average, he's getting almost 100 yards on the ground and so I want to see how because up until that Jets game, I mean, I think we talked about it last week. He was posting over 100 quarterback rating. He had the highest, in the NFL. So that was 4 games of having the highest quarterback. So the thing he was doing was there'd be a mistake and he would snap back from it and it wouldn't snowball into 2 interceptions, 3 interceptions. He didn't have that kind of situation going on. And so he played poorly against Jets. He missed. I think there's, I think you have to credit the Jets for that some. I think they have to take blame for that some. So I want to see how he responds this week before I, because that's the one thing that's kind of, I think it's just unfair a little bit. People are like, oh, yep, Sam Darnold turned back into a pumpkin. He's turned back into Sam Darnold. It's like, no, wait a second. It's like, let's see a little bit more, before before we say that. Let's see how he responds. Let's see, what he comes back and does. But I do think it all starts with the having some balance where it's not just all on the passing game to come through for him.
Ross, your final thought?
Yeah, I got a quick question for both of you guys. We talked about this on Before I Die, Jesse Pierce, Miles Gorman, myself on Monday. In the grand scheme of things, Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions on Sunday, who is the game more important to? I feel like from where I'm sitting, it's the Vikings, because if you can get to 6-0, put a little bit of distance between yourself and the rest of the division, not that it can't be overcome, but this is the Lions at home. I think the game is more important to you and easier for the Lions to justify a loss than perhaps the Vikings. But I could be looking at that wrong. Who do you guys think the game is most important to?
Well, I tend to think division games at home are more important for the home team, just because it's, you have that advantage. In the grand scheme of things, is it going to make or break the division? I don't think so, but I just tend to think if you're at home and you're playing division, those are ones you want to take care of. But I do think it's I can tell you there was disappointment on the Vikings side for the offensive players of how they played in London. So I think it's important for them to come back and have a good performance because they were not happy. I can tell you when Justin Jefferson walked in that media room, he was not happy with how they played. And he shouldn't have been. I mean, that was just not good enough. And so I think you're going to see a inspired performance by that group to come back and play a lot better than what they showed in London.
I think given the stakes, it's actually equal because look, like here's the thing. The Lions, they did get screwed in Dallas last year. It appeared that the old lineman checked in. Forgive my dogs; they're very upset about something. Yeah. But they, they probably got screwed there. But the fact is, they then had to go to San Fran, right, and play. Yeah. This is that's the thing about these games right now, and with how this conference is stacking up. This game probably will play or could play a vital role in home field in the playoffs. So if we're looking at this from, not the 10,000 foot view, but the view of the 2024 season, I think it's a huge game for both teams. I'm not sure that they're again, if one felt fluky, if the Vikings felt fluky, I'd say it's more important for the Vikings to prove that they can really play with Detroit, but I think that they can. I'll be curious from both sides to see that. But to me, you are talking now, if the Vikings win 6-0, 2 games up. If the Lions win, you're tied. So if we're going to be talking about the division itself, I think this game is mammoth for both teams, which makes it awesome, which is why the get-in price is like $225 right now.
Think about that. That's awesome.
For a Lions game. And
for a late October game. Late October game, we're talking about a huge game. I love
absolutely it. Incredible. So what's up with your Vols? So they lost a couple of weeks ago, and now they're going – and now it's like I thought your Vols were going to blow teams out, and now it feels like they're giving you heart palpitations. What's up with
that? It was we had a speed bump there when I started talking about playoff. I knew I shouldn't have said that.
You did.
But it's the third Saturday of October, and if you're from Tennessee, the third Saturday of October, you don't get married. And preferably don't die. It's Bama week.
Well, third Saturday of October. And you could beat Bama.
I hope so. We got him at home.
I'm not a huge Bama guy this year. I mean,
remember 2 years ago?
Yeah.
The kick that was like
you weren't sober for like a week.
Had to dry out for that one.
I saw pictures of Chip in his Peyton Manning 18 Vols jersey.
That's
beer cans all around him. It was incredible. It was an incredible display of fandom.
Chip, you're a man after my own heart. There is nothing. I'm all for people getting married, having their wedded bliss, and their live your best life.
Season.
However, if you invite me to a wedding on a fall Saturday or Sunday, you might actually have to pay me to show up to your wedding because that's just not happening.
If you have friends that are football fans and you get married during the season on the weekend, then you are the most tone deaf couple of tone deaf couples. I mean, come on. You know,
That's right.
April,
Preach.
May,
June, July.
Just once
Not
football.
Early
October.
August.
And August, yeah, I mean, it's a preseason. Who gives a crap? But yeah, when you get into conference schedules and full slate of NFL games, I mean, red zone or your wedding. I know what I'm choosing. I'm going with Scott Hansen every time. Hey, before we go, Roscoe, I love your shirt. Tell me where I could possibly get.
Oh,
and Chip
Judd.
too. Get one of those shirts.
Well, thank you very much.
Pull the
Actually,
computer
I'll-
down so I can see the
How
shirt.
about,
Oh, there
how about
it is.
this? Look at that. That's
Oh,
you, Judd. Judd
at
is my
that.
sports dad. Big Leg Bill, who, knock on wood, apparently never misses. Sorry, he'll now miss on Sunday. Plenty of stuff for you at scorenorth.com.
I want the sports
/shop.
dad one. That is
That's a-
awesome.
Yeah, it's
Send Chip one of those,
fantastic,
damn
isn't it?
Send Chip
I got to
one.
get that.
I'd like one.
We'll see what I could do.
And
Judd,
I'm a sports dad.
I'm working on one for you, Judd. You know how tough it is to get things done.
Yeah, I know. Red tape.
Look
But
at
that's
all
some
these.
great stuff.
Yeah, there's great stuff there. Scorenorth.com /shop or just scorenorth.com. It's always being updated. The But I Was Told is great. That's actually demanded by the Vent Line listeners, the But I Was Told
Phil
t-shirt.
was told,
so.
but I was told that they fall apart without Kirk Cousins. Yeah, if I hear that one more time, he's not wrong. But okay, so we're done here. Chipper, we're going to have to coordinate. The Vikings actually play next Thursday against the Rams, so we should probably try and do the show on Friday, if that works for
Absolutely.
you.
Day after. Yes, let's do it.
Exactly right. Review it. We'll have 2 games at that point. Chip Scoggins, of course, check out his work in the Star Tribune. Ross Brendel, I'm Judd. We'll see you later. Purple Access.